Hello everyone, welcome back to Pizza Cultura, our regular part of the wider Pizza Club network and community. Hello Tom, hello Peter, hello Stephanie. It's been a while, how are you guys?
Great to see you, Pepe.
Great to see you too. Okay, topic of the day. Let's jump right into it. 50 top pizza and generally speaking worldwide pizza rankings and diversity and inclusion in these rankings. Because I recently noticed something that didn't really make me happy. Recently we had the 50 top pizza Italy that came out and I noticed a serious step back from the previous years. This year, we only had one woman pizzaiola in the ranking of the 50 top pizzerias in Italy. Only one woman, and not even ranking at the top position, but only 59. So I just wanted to throw it there, open up this topic about diversity and inclusion, because I was thinking about the representation of women in general in the pizza world. This is a topic that we already faced and dealt with so many times. But generally speaking, I think that talking about diversity and inclusion could be a wider topic, and not, of course, not just about 50 to pizza, but about general pizza rankings in the world. And I would like your opinion about it. So we can start talking about women. We can think also about let's call it ethnical diversity or whatever, but I think this is the kind of topics that we should really consider for a wider conversation. So, starting with women, have you had a look at our 50 to Pizza Italy, guys? And if you notice the same thing I noticed, what do you think about it? I would say I would like Stephanie to weigh in as a first commenter on the topic.
Oh, and also a woman. uh, so yeah, it's really annoying when I continuously see these lists that highlight the same pizzerias that are owned by men over and over again, especially in Italy. And the diversity side has always been an issue for all of the lists, not just Italy, but in the US as well. But it's also diversity in styles because they're ranking supposedly 50 pizzerias in the US. And they're really only focusing on one style of pizza, I would say, for all of that. And they don't technically call that out. So I think that, that also puts a lot of women out of the running because they're not necessarily doing a Neapolitan or wood-fired pizza. And that's really when I look at it, even on there are some women on the slice list for the US, but those don't necessarily make the hit lists as they do for the 50 top pizzeria list. So yeah, I completely agree. And it's not just pizza. There's a lot of lists out there that don't include women or especially diversity, but pizza seems to be one that you can find it in every country. You can continue to look at more people that are coming to the forefront, and they are a diverse mix, and there are a lot of women. So why continue to focus on the same people over and over again and not get out there and see new places?
Totally agree. Also, glad that you mentioned how the diversity in style also is an issue because it's always been a serious issue with that kind of ranking. But I think also in other rankings that they focus too much on Neapolitan pizza, which you could in some way forgive to 50 top pizza since the association, the people that have founded live in Naples. But once you become a worldwide ranking, you want to just provide a little bit more of diversity, especially when you open up all the different rankings in the several other continents. And I like also to highlight the fact that I don't think it's just the issue with that so many women maybe are not making a Neapolitan pizzeria, so are not represented. Because I would say that at least in from what I can see lately, there are so many capable pizzaiola that are also making Neapolitan styles, and still you don't see their presence in this ranking. I would like just to stress how, okay, I said before that the Italian...
I wouldn't use the words capable, I would use that they're producing. Because I know a lot of women that are more than capable of making Neapolitan pizza, but yet they're not offering that in their particular pizzeria. It's really what the style they're offering in their pizzeria is wood fired.
Exactly, definitely. And by the way, I also would like to notice that despite the fact that I wanted to stress that it was the Italian top ranking that had a serious issue, and also it was a big step back considering that the previous rankings had some pizzaiolas more, not that many, but still more than one single pizzaiola. I will also say that recently I've been amazed at how many pizzaiola are showing themselves more and more through the social media, through the connection with the Women in Pizza Association. I can see how many of them are especially in the Latin pizza world, and likely there is the group of Latinos in Pizza that are doing a lot to highlight them. And still, I go and look at the ranking in the Latin world. We still have more pizzaiola than the Italian ranking, but not that many considering the amount of them that we have. And yes, it's a serious issue in terms of representation of the gender and representation of the style, as you said, Stephanie.
And I do know all of those countries, AVPN and other people that are attached to associations that are sponsored or aligned with Neapolitan pizza. There's continuously women going to the schools, continuously women getting educated on the programs. So why are they not being represented?
What do you think, Tom?
I mean, I don't want to kind of come at this too tangentially, but me and Stephanie were chatting off mic, so to speak, about this just before you guys joined. And it does seem like there's just a bit of a kind of lazy approach when it comes to the methodology. You know, will they actually make the effort to go out and try the new places, to, you know, proverbially kick the tires, or do they just rehash the same tried and tested names again and again and again and again, you know, for laziness, for a desire to not rock the boat, because, you know, certain names just become almost, you know, sacrosanct and have to be included lest they ruffle feathers. You know, I don't know how much of that features into it, but and this is bringing in, you know, I'm not overly familiar with the kind of politicking and the way those lists work in Italy, but there's been a few recent lists in the UK by, not sleepy backwater publications. I mean, I'm going to name drop here, you know, even though it might be a little bit provocative and controversial, but the Times did a recent list where it named the top pizzas in, I can't remember if it was London or UK, so apologies if I get that wrong. But from what I've heard by some people who were featured in the list, or who knew people were featured in the list, they didn't actually go out and try all the places. And I don't understand how you can take a measure, how you can take an opinion on whether somewhere belongs on a quote-unquote best-of list, unless you've actually gone and sampled their wares. It just seems such a kind of fundamental thing to do. And I don't know if that just belies the general kind of malaise in those lists where it's just about generating, you know, views to generate ad revenue or whatever, and whether they actually give a toss about the veracity of the list.
Another issue that I will say, and this is about representation in terms of nations, and I think it still connects with the two topics. So once there is too much focus on the Italian/Neapolitan style, and two, what you said, Tom, about the fact how many new pizzerias are trying. I will have a look at the Asian rankings, and now you would expect that an Asian ranking will have a lot of people that are from the countries. But in so many occasions, even the pizzerias that are located in Asia are actually managed by Italian people. I tell you what, guys. Last year in November, I went to Taiwan. I had a very nice tour around the country, and I tried so many pizzerias.
I saw that. That was a cool bit of content, by the way.
Yeah, and they were mostly all Neapolitan pizzerias, because anyway they were all people that were trained by the Neapolitan masters and so on and so on. But they were all run by Taiwanese people. Is that even possible that the only Taiwanese pizzeria that ranked the list was the only one managed by an Italian. And the same thing goes for Japan as well. Japan, there are hundreds and hundreds of pizzerias, and the few Japanese people that are in the list and have to compete with a lot of other Italians. So there is sort of a prejudice, I would say, a bias, call it like you want. But yes, it feels to me like they don't feel the need of trying new places, but they actually want to keep sort of a status quo. You know what I mean?
And let me ask you then, and to everyone, like, why do you three think that is the case? Why do you think there's this, oh, we have to keep these massively respected places on the list?
I personally, I got to be blunt here, and well, if I have to,
be blunt.
Well, if I have to put all the politics aside, because of course those are just, you know, okay, I don't want to say anything, but I would just sum it up as ignorance. So ignorance in terms of like, again, no need to explore the wider pizza landscape in order to understand more what the industry offers, but just sticking to the most popular names, because the most popular names, first of all, are trusted names. So you don't really need to try to have any experiences. But secondly, the trusted names also probably have a reputation by themselves in their local industry, and this reputation also provides reputation to the ranking as well, because it's all a matter of a communication that turns around themselves. Famous pizzaiolo talk about the ranking, the rankings talk about the famous pizzaiolo, so it's this loop of communication where everyone benefits the others, and so on. Yes, exactly. So unless you find some new pizzaiolo that is emerging, is in the rise of is like a new pupil of the media, they don't really seem to consider it. I can definitely say that for a lot of pizza makers that are working in UK, especially in London, there are a lot of people that have been done an excellent job for years and years and years, and it took a lot before they got noticed by the ranking. And for one pizzaiolo maybe that got noticed by the ranking, so many other pizza makers got unnoticed. But they are doing an excellent job, and they have a strong reputation among their clientele, their customer base, but maybe not that much in terms of media attention.
No, Tom and I were talking about laziness, and there's the ability to just go and look at photos on Instagram and check their marketing numbers and see how many likes they have, for example, check their pages, TikTok videos, whatever you want to look at, but without actually going to try the pizza and physically experiencing, meeting the pizza person, the checking out the atmosphere, the ambiance, whatever. How can you rank something without even trying it?
You can. The simple answer is you cannot if you're being honest, and that's the problem.
Peter, what's your opinion about it?
Yeah.
Well, my memory of this was several-fold. So I generally agree with what has been said. I'm always a little bit cautious on diversity arguments when we're not comparing it to the overall population that exists. So we need to be a little bit careful that we're saying, what is the goal? The second thing is, my memory of this was there were several lists. There was a main one, and I think that's the one that you guys are talking about. And that one immediately, the thing that just blares out at me, at least, is that it's heavily focused on one style, of course, which is not, I think if you really dig down, you may be able to find some language in their why they did that, but it's very hard to find. And the other thing that they include in the rankings, it's not just about the pizzas, my memory. They actually include the ambiance and the quality of the service, stuff like you would never find in a slice shop on the west side of New York. So it's not, that's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. So they have a separate category for that. So it gets complicated. I think the major thing that I come away with, anything that I find something that I disagree with, I want to find something that I can use with it. And it's striking to me how this is another example of how your identity with a pizza can change everything. And that's such a basic thing, so that they're identifying with Neapolitan pizza as their platonic ideal of what it should be. And if you vary from that, that's okay, of course. But when you really dig down on it, I don't think they're really on board with any other variation to a major degree. I think they really believe what they're going for is that ideal of Neapolitan pizza, which is fine, of course. Just disclose that and go forward with that. But in the wider sense of it, I think that's the thing that I take away, the major thing with it. No matter how much we sort of talk about this, we really have a deep down bias towards what we really believe is the good stuff. And yeah, so that's it.
And I'm quite surprised because they claim to work with local inspectors that are like food journalists, critique, and so on. So, do we have to think that all around the world, all the local inspectors are also in love with the Neapolitan or the Italian pizza style, and they despise any other kind of pizza because the Neapolitan style always rank the best? Do I have to think that in Italy, all these inspectors have never visited a pizzeria that is run by a woman that deserves to be in the ranking? It's hard for me to believe something like that. Or I mean, if I had to believe it, then it's a problem. Because if I'm believing that these people have really not considered any woman capable to do the pizzeria at the same level of all the other 50 people, to me, that's a serious issue. Not because I believe in Italy we have this thing we called about the quote rosa, so the pink ratio. So I don't believe that the gender equality means that we should have the same number of women, the same number of men, and so on and so on. No, credit when it's due. We're just talking about merits here, but it is hard to believe that in an age where finally so many women are just rising to the attention of the media and are doing an excellent job. So it's not just about marketing. They really do a high quality pizza. It's hard to believe that inspector wouldn't go to their place and they wouldn't consider the pizza at the same level of the other of the equivalent pizzeria run by men. Either it's such an incredible coincidence, or we have an issue here. That's what I think.
I mean, look, I think it's one of those situations where two things can be true at the same time. To Peter's point about what percentage of the pizzerias in, say, Naples are female owned and run, that is obviously something that will feed into the data pool. But at the same time, and this kind of goes to something that me and Stephanie were talking about, the lion's share of the work when you're compiling these lists should be to try new places. So if you have a new place that's getting a bit of buzz that you're seeing, photos of that, kind of past the initial visual test and the reviews are good online or whatever, and it happens to be run by a female pizzaiola, then I think it is kind of doubly incumbent upon you. One, because it's a new spot that has hitherto not been featured, and the entire rationale of these lists is to provide new data for diners, for people who are wanting to eat pizza. And if I see a list that for the 7th year running is telling me to go to, A, B, C pizza in Quartiere Spagnoli, it's like, well, I know about this place. I don't need to be told for the 7th time. Whereas if I see, there's another new pizzeria that's just opened, off Spaccanapoli or whatever, and it's owned by this, new girl from, then go and fucking try it. And if it sucks, it sucks. That's fine. But go and try it.
And that's one of the main issues, I believe. It's not just a matter of gender inequality, but it's the problem of not exploring new places. And actually, that
process is screwed.
Yeah, exactly. That was once what really the critiques, the food writer, the food journalists were happy to do. They used to find new places. Actually, there was a competition in finding places where where no one has ever been. No one actually had written a line about it. It seems that nowadays food critics, or at least the people that participate to these rankings, just go to the places that already had some media attention. So what's the point? Exactly what you're saying, Tom. What's the point if they already had the media attention?
Or apparently just don't want to actually go and eat, the fare, eat the wares of the place, which just seems like, well, then maybe being a food journalist is neither a suitable vocation nor avocation for you. Maybe you should go and write about, the stock market or something. I don't know. But if you want to be a food journalist, if you want to write about food stuff, and we have two superb examples of this, Stephanie and Peter and Pepe, all three of you are to kind of in different guises involved in writing content about food. All three of you go out and eat at these places, because how are you supposed to take an opinion on something if you haven't tried it? It just seems like such a basic tenet, and I don't understand why it seems that that's not 101. You have to go and eat at the place. And again, something me and Stephanie were chatting about before. It's supposed to be the fun part of the job, going and eating at new places. You can expense it if you're working for someone, like a massive publication that has a fairly decent war chest. You can afford to get a bloody Uber to go and eat there. You can expense the food. As Stephanie pointed out, you're probably going to get comped. So just go and eat. This is something that idiots like me do out of my own pocket for fun. If it's your job, congratulations, you won one of the professional lotteries. Enjoy it. But yeah,
when you can't really rank anything if you haven't tried everything. And so that, I think that was the big mission for us when we were working on Modernist Pizza, was we looked at lists, but we also went and asked the pizza makers themselves, where do you go around this area? Are there new places that are up and coming? A lot of times it were people that were from their restaurant that started new places. And so we found so many networking ways. We would ask people at the front desk, where they went for pizza, or even our Uber drivers. Sometimes my Uber driver would take me to some place that they loved that turned out to be a really amazing spot. So nowadays, it doesn't take a lot to network and get ideas, but the whole thing is you have to take the ideas and actually go through the process and the steps to try it.
Stephanie, you touched an interesting point about asking other pizza makers which pizzerias they would recommend. Do you know about these new pizza rankings, which actually is not about pizza, but it's about Pizza Chef, which is called the best pizza chef?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're gonna have the first official edition this year. They actually had the first one last year, but it was integrated in what it was the best chef, and they did it sort of a anticipation of the pizza edition. Not surprisingly, the name on the top were always the same, with Franco Pepe ranking first. But we know it's great at least. But that was exactly the point of this ranking. In that case, they didn't have inspectors to go around and try pizzerias. They didn't want to judge the pizza. They wanted to provide an award to the chefs, and they asked other chefs, who other pizza chefs you exactly inspires you would you recommend for this list? Not only to other chefs, because they also ask to whoever wants to participate to the survey, and generally speaking, is a food journalist or whatever, or just pizza passionate like me. They ask me as well. But the thing is that it's just a simple method based on points. We said, okay, we have a list of chefs, and you now can decide how many points you want to give to these chefs, and you have points from 1 to 10. So who would you give 1 point? Who would you give 2 points? Who would you give 10 points? And you only have these points to provide out of these hundreds of names that we're providing you. I'm not saying that this is a fair method. I'm just saying that it's a different method that is based on the opinion of people, which has nothing to do on just going around pizzerias and try pizza, or just evaluate the restaurants. And again, I'm not saying this is better or not. Actually, I would like to know your opinion about it, if you think this could be a different way to make a ranking. What do you think, Stephanie?
So I do like community involvement. That definitely is something that I think is helpful. But then you also need someone to be fair on the analysis. So, it's interesting to compare Franco Pepe. I'm just going to throw a couple people that I know on the chef list that I'm assuming. You have Franco Pepe, then you have someone like a Chris Bianco, then you might have someone like a Dan Richer, then you might have someone like a Sarah Minnick. 4 totally different pizza makers, but very well respected in their craft. But not necessarily everyone is going to know who they are. So it kind of, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative. So it's hard to do a ranking. Ranking's always going to be subjective, no matter what it is. If it's your palate, your culture, your stake in the community, your love of someone in particular. So I love lists, but I don't necessarily need a ranking.
That's actually a good one. What do you think, Peter?
Well, I've got an upside and a downside. So my upside is that there seems to be a market opportunity to do our own thing. That's the upside. So if they're going to screw up the list again and again every year, why don't we do our own lists?
I'm in.
Okay. The downside, which I always like to look at the downside too. The downside is maybe you could do a list of the most overrated pizzerias. That would get spicy really quick, right? So I just think there's a lot of opportunity. I agree that there's this, fundamentally, when we strip everything down, yes, it's subjective, but it's also objective too. So it's that sort of negotiation between what part is really just our personal taste and what can we objectively say. Like I have said, and I'm on the record as saying a certain pizzeria in Chicago doesn't have their dough the right way, to the extent that sometimes too much, you get sick from it. That's objectively bad. I don't care what your personality is. You can't do that to your customers. That's just not acceptable. On the other hand, there's a ton of different styles and you're going to have a ton of different opinions on them. And no matter how many people say, and I don't believe them really, that they come and say they want to be objective as possible, you can't eliminate it. I still believe you're going to come with your own priors, unless you're willing to just have that same pizza over like a 6-month period and have it like 5 times. Then I would believe you. But if you're just going in there once, no, forget about it. You're not going to like it. So I'm skeptical and optimistic at the same time. You're welcome.
There's also the possibility of the pizza. I've talked to pizzaiolas or pizzaiolas about, consistency too. There's sometimes you go in and a place has a bad day and that's the first time you go and you're like, you're crazy. This place is awful. But then you go back 3 months later and you have the best pizza in your life or best meal in your life.
Let's put some names on that one. I'll put one out there. We've talked about this before. In Brooklyn, if you go to Semini Gardens, I've had great pizzas from that. I've also went last winter with Colin, and it was unedible for Colin's.
I've never had a good pizza at Semini Gardens ever.
I've gone like 4 times.
Are we talking Sicilians or rounds?
Yes.
Both.
Sicilians.
Well,
squares.
It's the same dough, but
it's cooked differently, obviously.
Just cooked differently.
Right. But I think the wintertime, they have a problem with their rise and it becomes a gum dough like you haven't believed. It's really sort of not just a gum dough that it's like, oh, gee, isn't that a shame? It's like, that's just ruined. I think there's a
don't
big,
eat it.
Right, exactly. Or you're going to get sick. Now, we didn't get sick on that trip,
I have a weird, and Peter, I really want you to push back at me on this, but I don't like gummy pizza. But for some reason, with Spumoni's, I find their gumminess just like a kind of pillowy, comforting, nice. Like I can't explain it. Somehow the gumminess works. And I obviously, not all gummies.
Turn my camera off right now because I just
I know.
I want to just vomit because it's so gross.
This is what I'm curious about, because obviously, not all gumminess is the same. So maybe the gumminess that you had was different to the gummy. It becomes like a kind of gradation of gumminess.
Yes, it is.
But,
it's a spectrum.
There is
it's not
gradation.
a binary.
Yeah. But
it's like the difference between char and burnt.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum there. If you go over the edge, it can just go right over the cliff, and then it's just unbelievably bad. But you can approach it, and if you don't look too hard at it, it's okay. And in fact, it may even be good at times, but you have to be extremely careful with that, because if you go over the edge, you're dead. You're just dead with it. and it's
Yeah,
time for the garbage can.
I think if you have, I guess the only kind of benchmark of what is absolute bad gumminess is when it almost feels like you're eating raw dough. Then that's bad gumminess. Yeah.
Right. Well, we went on a different turn there, didn't we?
So guys, I think we can wrap it up here. So I will just ask you one final question to each of you to reply very shortly. So what would you, if you had to create a new ranking, a new pizza ranking, and we're talking about ranking, okay, not just list, but ranking. So what kind of criteria would you use? Tom?
Okay. I mean, I'm going to kind of be a bit cowardly in this question and dovetail it with the previous thing you guys were talking about. I would actually do away with ranking. I just don't think any kind of order of preference helps. So I would have a list of recommendations of these spots are the dog's bollocks. They're all really, really good. And I recommend them, without any hesitation, but in no particular order. And I also think in terms of methodology, the people that I think should be compiling these lists, and this is something you guys pointed to, should be the actual pizza makers. Like if you were to have a list made by Tony Geminiani, one, you know that he knows his, métier. Two, you know that he's been out trying these places because the biggest pizza geeks in the world are the people actually making the pizza, and they always try new spots because they love what they're doing and they're curious to get new takes. And three, no one, unless they're like an uber douchebag, is going to recommend their own spot. So you're going to get new places other than the hallowed, names that have been surviving for decades. So that would be my kind of kumbaya type list.
Stephanie, what would you add to Tom? I think we all agree here that we don't like rankings, but we do like lists. So what would you add to what Tom said?
I would like to do a women exclusive list of 50, and fuck you guys, but there needs to be a one list with an amazing women, and then go from there, and then do a diversity list. Like, I don't need it all to go together, but I'd like it at least to be exposed. So that's what I would do, and I would eat at every single one of them.
And Peter, to this combination of what Stephanie and Tom added, would you like to add to the list the overrated list of pizzeria?
I would like that list, and I would like to see Stephanie's on that women pizza list. I think she's the obvious choice to do that. I agree with Tom. It should be in groups, not just an overall ranking, because that gets really silly. But it comes down to me, what's memorable and what's not, and what do I crave and what do I don't crave. To be honest, there's probably about 5 or 6 or 7 pizzas that I've had in my life that I actually crave, that I would think that's truly memorable. The rest are, some are good and some are just okay and some are horrible. But I really think, I think there's a bias, because we all love pizza. I think there's a bias inherent that we all sort of, well, my opinion, we overrate it. And we overuse the word fantastic and awesome and great. I don't think there's too many great pizzas. I don't even think even the great pizzerias are great all the time either. But there are probably a handful of them that I can remember in my 30 years that I've been on the tour almost, that truly in my mind, I still think about to this day.
And just to follow up with the grouping criteria, I would add to our personal list different categories. So we should have different styles, even different sub-styles, because there are styles that also have sub-styles. So not to compare, as you said, how do you say apple with apple or whatever you said?
Apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges. Yeah. Well, sorry guys, but you got me.
Bananas and grapefruit.
So that would be a great way to put a spotlight on as many pizzerias as we can, trying to be fair, but at the same time respecting the job of everyone without comparing things that are basically uncomparable. So absolutely. I think we just lay down the foundation of our future list.
I just wanted to ask Stephanie something, because I'd wondered whether having a females only list is a good kind of interim solution, or is it really patronizing? Like this is what like.
So I'm not saying that it should be so I think that there needs to be a women's only list just so that people can see that we're not talking about 2 women only pizzerias. I could probably give you a list of 100, but I know that that's a lot. But I want to just educate people on, and that's why I also don't believe in the ranking side, but here's 50 women-led pizzerias. Go visit 2, 5, 50, whatever, and then tell me that they're not as good as all these other people that you're putting on the 50 top lists.
So like basically just a dedicated showcase, right?
Yeah, and then get them to get exposure. I mean, that's, I think, the other hard thing is exposure, and push them up so that they also feel like they're just as strong as all of these other leaders, because it's becoming kind of pathetic, because they are.
Cool. I think this could be also a great topic for a future conversation to go deeper into, because this is something that I also discussed with a friend, Pizzaiola, and that was exactly the same topic. Like, okay, should we talk or not talk about it? Like, from one side, we don't want to be patronizing, from the other, and so just relegate the women on one side, because the moment we relegate in one side, we are just doing what we don't want to do, because it should be everything genderless. We shouldn't care about the gender. On the other side, though, we know there is an issue of misrepresentation. So if we don't talk about it, then we might just, we keep the establishment, where women don't have the consideration that they deserve, maybe just because they're not so attentive in communicating themselves like the men are, and just because we don't talk about them, so we don't put a spotlight on them. So it's a complicated issue. I think there are valid points on both sides, and that's why I think this would be a great topic for a future conversation, one that Stephanie called it. Okay, guys, so I think this is a wrap. So thank you so much for being together today. So as usual, follow Pizza Club wherever you follow us. So that would be on YouTube, podcast, or on all the podcasting platform, Clubhouse, and so on and so on. So we don't have a topic for next time. This might be the next topic, who knows? But anyway, until then,
Not yet.
See you guys. This has been a great chat. So thank you, guys.
Ciao, ciao. Bye, guys.
Ciao.